Good afternoon, chefs, and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be cooking some steaks. We're going to be doing it with some pomme puree, which is mashed potatoes. We're going to cook it with some greens. These are very cheap at the supermarket at the moment. Pick up a whole bag for like 30p. We're going to chiffonade these down, saute them off. We're going to blanch some peas. We're going to refresh them so we keep the nice green colour in them. And we're going to serve this with a nice beef and red wine jus. So chefs, we're going to start by marinating the steaks. And what we're going to do, we're going to put these in a little bit of oil, some fresh thyme and some crushed garlic. And we're going to put these back into the fridge until we need them, pull them out about an hour before we serve them, just so the steaks come back to room temperature. So by doing this, you're going to try and infuse some more flavours into the steaks. I'm not going to season them just yet. I don't want to put no salt or pepper onto the steaks. If I put any salt on them before I cook them, hours before, what this will do, it will draw all the good moisture out of the steak, and it will make it dry and quite tough to eat. We don't want to do that. We will season these steaks just before we throw them into the pan. I've got some thyme. I'm going to break some sprigs up off of this. They can go in with the steaks. I've got some garlic, which I'm just going to crush. I'm going to peel it. Just break that up into with the steaks. And what I'm looking for is that all this garlic's going to rub off onto the meat and start to infuse it with some more flavour. Let's get rid of all this. And then into the steaks with the garlic and the thyme, I'm going to put some into the bowl with the steaks, the thyme and the garlic. I'm just going to add a bit of olive oil, and just coat the steaks just like that. Now I'm going to cover this. It's going to go into my fridge, and it's going to be left there for the next few hours to start to marinate and absorb the flavours. So next we're going to move on to the green cabbage, the spring greens, sorry, and the peas. So I'm going to start by chiffonading my spring green leaves. I'm going to pull the stalks off of them, and I'm going to cut them down really fine. As you can see, you've got lovely spring greens here. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to pull the stalks off of these. We'll just do this like that. So grab from the bottom, just pull them off. Because what will happen, these stalks are very hard. We're going to blanch these, and these won't cook, so they'll be very tough and very bitter if you eat them. I'm just going to pull these off, these lovely greens. Like I said, this is a very cheap vegetable. It goes lovely as well with a nice bit of steak or a bit of beef if you're doing it for Sunday dinner. You see, I'm just taking all these stalks off, stripping it down. So what I'm going to do, like I said, is chiffonade these. I'm going to blanch them into my water. As you can see, I've got water's on here. I'm going to bring that water to the boil before I put the greens in. It needs to be boiling. Anything that grows above ground needs to go into boiling water. Anything below ground goes into cold water and boil it up. So these are going to go into hot boiling water, blanch them for about 2 to 3 minutes so I can keep all the nice colours. They're then going to get refreshed under the cold water in the sink. And then I'm going to turn on my potatoes into cold water, and I'm going to start boiling up my potatoes for mash. So to chiffonade these, I've got all the leaves on top of each other. I'm going to roll them up, get my knife. I'm going to really finely shred them. So chiffonade is finely shredded. So when we finely shred them, we can use things like cabbage and onions, and you can chiffonade basically a lot of leaf vegetables. You can see how fine I'm getting these. Really nice and fine. Beautiful. Nice finely shredded. They're going to go in my bowl and I'm going to hold them until my water's boiling, and then I'm going to put it straight into my boiling water, which I've seasoned with salt. So chefs, I've now got my water boiling, as you can see. I've got my peas on in the other pot. You can see, I don't know. They're boiling away. They're going to take 2 or 3 minutes. Once they're boiled, I'm going to take them out of the hot water, refresh them under cold water, and then I'll just warm them up in butter, ready to serve. My green beans, you can see here, they're going to go into the water. As you can see. And I'm going to let them boil up again for about another 2 to 3 minutes. And then I'm going to refresh them under cold water, put them to one side and warm them up in butter when I'm ready to serve. Okay, so you can see now the peas and the spring greens have been taken off the heat. I've run them under a cold tap, drained the water off of them and just refreshed them. Then they're going to go into the fridge until I need them for service, which I'll just then add butter to them and warm them up to reheat. But look, if you can see, by refreshing them, look at the beautiful green colour that I've kept on my vegetables. I've not lost that colour. I've not left them sitting on the side while they're still hot. If you leave them on the side while they're still hot, they're going to carry on cooking and they're going to lose that vibrant green colour. So they're going to go into the fridge now and stay there until I need them for service. I've now put my potatoes into cold water, as you can see. And I've diced these up quite small. I don't need to have them large. They're going to take longer to cook and boil down if they're large. Obviously, as well, what will happen if they're too bigger pieces, that you'll get mushy on the outside and they'll be raw in the middle, and the outsides will just fall apart from it and you won't get that nice texture, what you want for mashed potatoes. Okay, so these have gone into cold water because they grow from below the ground, potatoes, and then we're going to bring the heat up to their boiling, and I'm going to boil these for about 15 minutes. Then I'm going to drain them, put them back into the saucepan, and I'm going to mash them first. And into my mash, I'm going to add some butter and some sort of seasoning, some salt, some pepper, and I'm going to just taste it as I'm going to get to the correct flavour and consistency of the mash that I want. So chefs, my mashed potato is already done. It's just sitting on the side to cool down. I can reheat that when I need it for service. So the next step we're going to go on to is making a red wine jus to go with our steak, a nice thick, beautiful flavouring sauce. So I've started by making a mirepoix. So a lot of you chefs are level 2 now, you should know what a mirepoix is, what it consists of. So I've got some shallots, you can use onions, I've got some diced carrots, I've got some celery in there. You can also add a bit of leek to this, gives it a bit more flavour. I've got a couple of cloves of garlic, which I'm going to crush. They're going to go into my pan as well. So I'm going to start by putting some oil into my pan. And what I'm looking for is not too much oil. I don't want the jus to be greasy and all the oil's floating to the top. I'm going to get that hot, and then in will go my onions, my carrots, or my shallots should I say, carrots and celery, my garlic. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to brown them off into the pan. I don't want to burn them. I want to keep them nice and get a nice brown colour on them. If I burn them, you're going to make your sauce taste very bitter. We're going to get these nice and brown, and what will happen with the brown, the colours on the vegetables, it's going to transfer into your sauce and give this really rich, lovely colour. Right, as you can see chefs, I've got my mirepoix and my garlic into there. It's sizzling away. Yeah, I didn't put it into a cold pan, I put it into a hot pan. I'm going to make sure that the pan's not too hot, so we're constantly checking the temperatures of the pan, keeping an eye on it. While we're at this stage, this is when you need to be really on top of it. So this will probably take about 5-10 minutes, depending on the size of the vegetables you cut. I've diced mine to a nice even size. You want to keep your vegetables all even so that they cook evenly throughout. What's going to happen, once these are cooked, I'm then going to add my tomato puree. Going to coat the vegetables in the tomato puree. I'm then going to add some red wine into there, and then my beef stock, and I'm going to let that reduce for about 40 minutes. And what will happen, it will start to get all the flavours from the mirepoix, the tomato puree, the beef stock, and it will start to thicken up. So I'll come back to you in about 5 minutes when this is all starting to go. So chefs, if you can see now, my mirepoix, my garlic and everything what's in there is all starting to get a lovely caramelisation on it. So I'm getting a nice brown colour. We'll turn my heat down a little bit because I don't want to burn my tomato puree when I put it in. So I've got about a tablespoon of this. This will go in. And what I'm going to do is just coat the mirepoix, the vegetables in the tomato puree, and this will help to thicken the jus as it reduces, and also here a little bit give it a nice dark colour. So what I want is for the redness to go. We need to start getting a nice dark colour onto the pan and onto the vegetable. If the pan's too hot, this will burn and yet again make your jus very bitter. So I've just took it off the heat because it's getting a little bit hot here. Give it a little scrape. It's getting brown very quickly. You can see lovely golden colours in there. That's what I'm looking for. All them colours, them beautiful colours, are going to transfer into my sauce. Once I've coated my mirepoix, my jus, I'm going to go in with my red wine. So probably about a glass of it. I'm going to go straight in, and you can hear that hissing sound. That's what we're looking for. And what we're going to do, we're going to remove all the flavours and the colours from the bottom of the pan. It's deglazing the pan we are here, okay? So you're taking all them flavours what's stuck to the bottom of it and deglazing it. We're going to let this red wine reduce to probably about 50% of what it is, until you can also smell that the alcohol has evaporated from it. And what you're going to be left with is the beautiful flavours of the red wine. So you can use many red wines for this. I wouldn't advise using an expensive one, but whatever you've got to hand really. So now my alcohol has evaporated. I can smell it's gone. I'm going to go in with some water, sorry. A couple of litres, or like a litre and a half. We're going with some thyme, some pepper, or if you've got peppercorns, or even better. Nothing goes better than a bit of beef with a nice bit of pepper in there. And then I'm going to go in, so I'm using today these little stock pots, which are really good, getting from most supermarkets. I'm going to put 2 of them in there for the moment. Might add another one a bit later, depending on the taste and flavours. So it's all about what you've got to use indoors, chefs, and it's all about tasting and flavours, okay? So when this comes back to the boil, I'm going to reduce it, just let it simmer away, and it's going to take about 45 minutes. And what will happen, all this, it should thicken up, reduce, we're going to pass it, and then we're going to leave it to one side until we cook our steaks ready to put onto the sauce. So as you can see now, chefs, my jus beautifully simmering away. It's going to take another at least good half an hour yet, and then I'm going to strain it, and I should be left with a lovely clear, lovely smooth liquid with no vegetables left in it. And then what I'll do, I'll put that into another saucepan and reduce it even more to get a nice thick sauce. So I'm back again, students. I've just strained my jus, and as you can see, I've put it back onto the heat, and I'm going to leave this now to simmer away again and reduce even more. And what I'm looking for is it's for a nice glossy, not too thick and not too runny. I want it to be nice when I put it onto the plate, which I'll show you when I come to prepare our plate and everything up. So I've got my steaks are in the fridge, which I've taken out now. I've got my mashed potatoes sitting there ready to reheat. My greens are in the fridge. I'm going to go and take them out in a moment. They're going to be pan fried in some butter to reheat them, give them a nice colour. My mashed potatoes is going to be reheated. My jus bubbling away now nicely again. As you can see, it's coming back to the boil, back to the simmer. And then I'm going to put my steaks on, and they're going to be cooked for 3 minutes each side. And then I'm going to bring it all together and plate it all up. Hi chefs, so I'm back now. My meat has been sitting in marinating for the last 2 hours. I'm ready to start to cook my steaks. I've prepared all my vegetables, they're ready to go. So the next step is to cook the steak. So what we're going to look for is for the pan to get really hot before we put the steaks into it. we're going to sear the steaks so we get a nice brown colour on them, and we're sealing all that flavour inside them. And we're going to finish them with some butter. Once I think my steaks are done to my liking, which I'm going to try to go for medium rare, I'm going to rest them for a few minutes after I take them out of the pan. It's very important that you rest your steaks. If you cut into them before you rest them, you're going to end up with very tough steaks. The idea is that they come out of the pan, the meat is very tough, and like if you get into a hot bath, it tightens. And when you're resting the steaks, you're relaxing the meat, it starts to soften up a bit as it rests. Okay, so at the moment, I'm getting my pan very hot. So it's getting very hot, my pan. I'm not going to put no oil into this. The reason why is that I've oiled the steaks already, so they'll have a nice bit of flavour from the garlic and the thyme going into them. I'm just going to make sure this pan is nice and hot. I can see it is because it's starting to smoke, and you can hear that, and that's what you want to hear from your steak chefs. Okay, you can see I put my garlic in there with it. I've got my thyme in there as well. And this is just going to add to all the flavours to the steak. So as you can see, it's nicely browning away here. I'm looking to cook mine probably about 2 to 3 minutes each side. I'm going to turn it gradually after every minute though. So all in all, probably about 6 to 8 minutes. Longer if you want it tougher. Obviously the longer you cook it, the tougher the meat becomes. So I like to have mine rare, but I'm going to do it medium rare today. So I'm letting that cook. It's on a high heat. I'm going to give it another turn. As you can see, it's getting some beautiful colour on it. And as you can see, if you look at the side of the steak, the heat starts transferring up to it. And the idea is that you want to sear all this meat around. Once I've got a nice sear on it, I'm going to turn the heat of the pan down. I don't want it burning away, so I'm going to add some butter and then a little bit of oil. And I'm just going to keep basting the steak up to infuse all them flavours into it. Give it another turn here. Get the garlic off it, it's back underneath, put it back over. So I've got a nice colour onto the steak from my pan. I'm going to turn the pan down a little bit. I'm going to throw some butter in now. A little bit of oil, because the oil will stop the butter from burning. Just you see all them beautiful flavours are in there. I've got my garlic in there, my thyme, and it's all infusing. It's all about adding flavours, building up the levels of flavour into your food. I'm going to turn this over. And as I said, I'm going to keep basting my steak, getting all them flavours on top of it and through it. You can see the butter's bubbling away beautifully here. I've got to be careful not to have the heat too high. I don't want to burn the butter. I'll just keep basting it, getting loads of them lovely, beautiful flavours into there. Give it another turn. Basting it more. So next thing I'm going to check is if my steak's done. So if you use your hands for this, if you touch your palm of your hand there and you feel how soft it is, that'll mean your steak's rare, which it still is quite rare now. If you pull your fingers together, it's medium rare, and you go down medium, medium well done, and well done. Okay, so as you do that, this palm of your hand will get tougher, and that represents the bit of the meat if you're feeling it. I'm going to give it another turn, and I'm quite happy for my steak to be done now. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this off the pan now, and I'm going to leave it to rest on my chopping board, and I'm going to put the garlic and all the butter back over the top of it, because as I take it off, this steak will still be cooking. So all that butter And that's what I'm looking for. And what you start to see to happen, any blood what's inside the steak will start to release. And then what we'll do, we'll serve it with all my veg I've got ready here onto a lovely plate. So I've plated up my dish now and it's all finished, as you can see. My gravy's on there, my jus, my steak, my mash and my peas and spring greens.